Hey, what's happening, everyone? Welcome back. And if it's your first time here, then just plain welcome. Something interesting happened. Imagine for a moment that you got sued because of what a bunch of other people were doing. Kind of total BS, right? Well, that's the reality for Glock firearm. Now, understand Glocks are probably the most popular handgun in the entire United States. It's on the hip of a lot of law enforcement officers. It's a very popular self defense firearm. It's reasonably priced. It's not a cheap gun, but it's not a super expensive gun. It has a long history of reliability, and it's just a very popular firearm. But there's a little thing you can get if you don't actually care about the law called some people call it a Glock switch or a full auto switch. You just replace a part, and now suddenly your Glock becomes a fully automatic machine pistol. Now, these devices are largely illegal. They weren't developed by Glock. Glock doesn't sell them. They don't market them, especially not in the United States. There are some transferable Glock switches floating around, but they're not very common. The problem is it's not a very difficult device. You can 3D print them. You can apparently order them overseas from China. They're not hard to get, but they are technically an NFA item. They are the part that makes a gun into a machine gun. Class 3, all the bells and whistles. It's the kind of thing that most people cannot afford, much less have access to. There's only a handful of them available. Nothing manufactured after 1986 qualifies. They're practically impossible to get lawfully. But we've had a lot of gangbangers, a lot of criminals who are getting these, putting them on Glock firearms and using them. Now, again, Glock isn't selling them. They're not marketing them. And yet they're being sued by Baltimore and the state of Maryland, along with Everytown for Gun Safety in America, a Michael Bloomberg-funded gun control group. And their issue is very similar to a lawsuit filed by Chicago, basically alleging that because Glock hasn't radically changed its design in such a way that you cannot put these devices on the guns, they're liable. Yeah, let's think about this. They don't make the switches. They don't sell the switches. The switches are illegal to own. They're illegal to put on a gun. But Glock is at fault because their tried and true design, they're not interested in changing it because of what third parties are doing with illegally obtained items. Ugh. There is not enough booze in the world to make that make sense. There's not. There's just absolutely none. This is completely asinine. Unfortunately, this kind of goes back to a very old tactic. One gun control advocates really used to love, and that was filing lawsuit against gun companies and trying to make it so expensive to do business that they would just stop selling to the civilian market altogether. Now, keep in mind, there really is not as large of a government market as a lot of people want to think. Yes, there are tons of police officers, there's a lot of military personnel, but those contracts are not available all the time. A gun company's going to have a hard time staying afloat in the United States just on those. So they have to sell to civilians. They have to sell to the private market. That's people like you and me, right? Not difficult to understand there. But they tried that for a long time, and it led to something called the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act. Basically, it's a law that protects the firearm industry. You cannot sue them for things that are not their fault. You cannot sue them because a third party went out and shot someone with a gun made by this company. Straightforward. It shouldn't be needed. A lot of anti-gunners like to make a big thing about how no other industry enjoys this protection, but no other industry needs this protection. Literally no other companies get sued because of what someone else does with their products. Nobody's ever sued Toyota over drunk drivers. Never happened. The PLCA does leave out a couple of exceptions. You can sue them when something they did led to a problem. Currently, one very popular one that a lot of anti-gunners are using is to go after them for their marketing, saying that they market guns in ways that appeal to mass shooters. The biggest problem is that literally none of these efforts really require them to show that the mass shooter in question ever looked at any of their ads. Yeah. But With Glock, they're trying to make the case that because Glock hasn't changed their design, they're now responsible for what these third parties did. They're trying to use that one exception, which is reasonable. It's designed for allowing companies to be sued when they make a faulty product. And companies have been sued like that before. If a gun has a flaw and it results in injury or death, that lawsuit can proceed, just like it could with any other faulty product. This time, what they're trying to do is go a little different, and they're trying this approach. But the issue here, at least from my layman's perspective, is this is like suing car manufacturers because people can take emission controls devices off of their cars. All right, it's saying that people are able to modify a weapon in a manner that is not consistent with the law, and it's this company's fault. But how? Again, Glock isn't selling these things. They didn't even design them. This was some guy in South America designed this thing. Don't remember his name right off the top of my head. But this was not something Glock developed. How are they responsible for something like this? The fact of the matter is, they're really not. And I think deep down inside, everyone behind these lawsuits knows this. What they're trying to do is make it too expensive for Glock to sell to people like you and me. That's all it is. That's all it's about. They want to drive these companies away from us. See, you don't have to control guns. You don't have to pass gun control laws if nobody will sell us a gun in the first place. If guns are unavailable, it becomes much, much easier to control guns without laws. Is it a Second Amendment violation if Glock decides they don't want to sell a gun to me? Well, not really. They're a private company. They can sell their goods to whoever the hell they want. And that's the insidious thing about this. This isn't because gangbangers are putting illegally obtained switches in their Glocks and using them full auto. It's not because they're modifying other firearms and, using them in a full auto manner. If that was the issue, they would go after those people. They would go after them. Increase punishment, increase enforcement, double down on catching these guys buying these devices. They're not doing that. Why? Because that's not what the problem is. They're after Glock. This is really just the same thing as trying to go after Smith & Wesson or these other companies by using Mexico as our proxy. They don't want us to be able to buy firearms, and they're going to try to drive as many businesses out of business. All the gun manufacturers, all of them, they want to try to drive them out so that at the end of the day, we're the ones screwed. You know what? I want to know what you think. Go down in the comments and tell me what you think, what your read on this is. Am I out of line? Is this really just a reasonable attempt to keep fully automatic weapons out of the hands of criminals? Or do you agree and think, hey, this is just an insidious way to affect gun control without having to go through a legislature? Or do you think something else? You think something completely different? I want to know what you think. While you're there, do me a favor, hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit that notification bell, all that jazz. As you're well aware, I'm in a fairly small channel. I need all the help I can get, and every bit of engagement tells the algorithm people are interested in the content, and I use all the help you can give me. So if you'll do that, that'll be a big help for the channel. Feel free to share it, all that stuff, and I will catch you all in the next video.